Coming up next, sometimes you have to ask, is there any justice in this world? Today I've got an interview with one of the coolest singers of the 80s. He's a guy that doesn't get the credit he deserves. He fronted a band that started out as a southern rock outfit, but by the early 80s, they transformed into a leading arena rock group and released some of the most memorable hits of the decade, including today's classic. Actually, a couple songs we talk about here. There's actually a co-write between this band's guitarist and lead singer, along with a talented writer from a rival band. When the rival band's guitarist heard about that contribution, he was livid. To avoid a lawsuit, they had to give him a co-writing credit, even though he didn't write a word. He didn't write anything. By the end of the 80s, after 16 hits, this band had a temp singer who came in for one album, and he delivered their biggest chart hit. Well, let's find out about it. Coming up next. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. So it's time for another edition of our series Revelations, where artists and bands do a deep dive into their greatest songs and their greatest albums and relay fascinating insight behind the scenes that you will not find anywhere else. Today, we get the story behind one of the catchiest rock hits of 1982. Talking about 38 Special with their number one smash, Caught Up in You. A quick crash course on this band. The classic lineup included Don Barnes on lead vocals and guitar. There was Donnie Van Zant on vocals and guitar, who was also the younger brother of Leonard Skinner's Ronnie Van Zant. Steve Brookins and Jack Grondin on drums and percussion. They had two drummers. Jeff Carlisi on guitar, and then of course you had Larry Junstrom on bass. These guys were all working day jobs, and they were in and out of other bands, just kind of biding their time before they hit it big. But when they started composing their own original songs, they got serious pretty quickly, especially Donnie Van Zant, when his famous older brother told him to stick with music because he was about to quit altogether. But Ronnie Van Zant advised him to go after it with everything that he had, since music was in his blood. Don Barnes even walked away from a high-paying job at a railroad to go after this. After the band spent most of 75 and 76 on the road paying their dues, Ronnie Van Zant gave his brother's band their big break. He introduced them to Skinner's own manager, Peter Rudge, who also managed The Who at the time, and he was the tour manager for the Rolling Stones. So 38 Special, they got to open tours for the likes of Kiss and Foghat and Peter Frampton, to name a few. This led to them getting signed by A&M Records. Singer-songwriter Dan Hartman, who had cut his teeth with the Edgar Winter Group, he wrote the hit Free Ride. Would later have a solo hit with I Can Dream About You. He was chosen to produce 38 Special's first album. The self-titled debut was released in mid-77. The first couple of albums for 38 Special floundered. They tried to find their sound, who they were, but their third record was the one that put them on the map, with the title track Rockin' Into the Night. That became their first big hit. It also started a writing relationship with Survivor band member Jim Peterick, who's been on the show before. He was one of his band's main songwriters. Now, this did not sit well with his co-writing partner and Survivor guitarist Frankie Sullivan in his own band. More on that in just a second. Regardless, though, 38 Special started having major success in the pop charts, especially with their fourth album, Wild-Eyed Southern Boys, which of course, included the classic rock standard Hold On Loosely. Hold On Loosely was much bigger than its number 27 chart position. It's since become one of the most played songs in classic rock history. Hear it all the time on the radio. This was another co-write with Survivor member Jim Peterick, as was their next single, Caught Up in You, which we're going to talk about today. That came off their fifth album, Special Forces. It went to the top 10 on the pop charts and went all the way to number 1 on the rock charts. Caught Up in You, it is such a great rock song. It feels like it has two completely different choruses, and both are great by themselves. Could have been two songs. I've always thought this was the main chorus. And given that this was the bridge. Most of the time you only hear a bridge once in a song, but to hear they play it twice, which makes me believe it's a second chorus, because they go into it again right after the amazing solo. Regardless, it's a phenomenal piece of writing, one of the catchiest rock songs of 1982 for sure. Just try not to sing along to this classic when it comes on. So as I was saying, Jim Peterick would say that there was a lot of resentment that he was writing songs for another band, a rival band. But as he would say many times, the songs that he was composing for 38 Special with them, they weren't really right for Survivor. They came from another place and they were part of this great synergy that he had with Don Barnes and Jeff Carlisi. But his guitarist in Survivor, Frankie Sullivan, he felt like they were competition. He didn't like it at all. In fact, after Peterick helped with 38 Special's first hit, Rockin' Into the Night, cruising down the motorway. In fact, I remember him telling me that he didn't want to write with these guys with 38 Special at his own house because he was afraid that one of his own band members would stop over unexpectedly. So apparently he went to his mother's house and they wrote in her basement, very secret. He told me in our interview that he wrote Caught Up in You in this gloomy room in his mom's basement. It's very cold, very dark. He felt like a rebel, writing behind his band's back. But in the end, he actually gave the guitarist in Survivor, Frankie Sullivan, a songwriting credit on Caught Up in You, the #1 hit. It was not ideal. In fact, it was a source of contention between the two for a long time. According to Peterick, Frankie Sullivan claimed he should get credit in this song because he thought that it used a chord progression for a song they were writing with Survivor that was called Take It All. In fact, in his autobiography, Peterick would say, and I quote, "Even though there was no solid evidence to the similarity, I got 38 Special to agree to cut him into the copyright just to avoid a lawsuit." Take It All was never released to my knowledge. One interesting side note before we get into the interview with singer Don Barnes and Jim Peterick, he's in it too, is that even though Caught Up in You was a huge hit on the pop charts for 38 Special, it actually wasn't their biggest pop hit. Their biggest pop hit would come at the end of the 80s. Actually, Don Barnes had stepped away from the band to do a solo album. It's called Ride the Storm, but it wasn't released until decades later. So when Don Barnes stepped away from 38 Special, they got a new singer. His name was Max Carl. He wrote and sang the #6 pop hit Second Chance. It came out in 1989. It was a really strange thing to hear, especially if you were a big 38 Special fan, because it was a much different song and style than the straight-ahead rock that these wild-eyed Southern boys were known for. It was very adult contemporary, where it actually hit #1 on that chart. The biggest hit for a band that sounded nothing like them. Well, Don came back into the family and is with them to this day. He's night after night singing with them. Here's John and Jim, the story of Caught Up in You, some of their other hits.
You got one guitar, you crank it up, it can speak that whole song. Keith Richards, Start Me Up. That one guitar carries that whole song.
Oh, yeah.
So we started learning about broad brushstrokes. Leave all the other superfluous stuff out. Make it speak for itself.
Well, you can hear that on like Rockin' Into the Night. Jim Peterick and the guys from Survivor. And I loved hearing the story about how he was talking about it. He was kind of sneaking around because...
Yeah, he had some little political things within his group.
But it wasn't going to go on the Survivor album. So I always read that you gave it to your producer, Mark Spector.
Well,
right?
Mark Spector got it from John Klodner. He's a titan in the industry. John passed it on to Mark Spector. And at the time, the song was not something we had embraced or anything, but we listened to it. It's like, well, we can hear the payoffs in there. we had done 2 albums before that went straight over the cliff, you know.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
That's paying those dues, you know, and you pick yourself up and dust yourself off. And we went back, and there was a 3rd album, and A&M execs came out, and they didn't really hear the single, and they wanted to try this. We said, we'll cooperate with you, do anything you want us to do, you know. So we went back to the studio and cut that song. We wanted it so bad. We had nothing to fall back on. It was like, man, we were rolling the dice with no training. We were driving trucks, day jobs, and all that stuff.
All for music, man.
I didn't mind driving the trucks because I could hum and write songs while I'm driving,
right,
in a warehouse somewhere, you know. So I like the freedom of that, but I wouldn't want to go back to it. I used to sing so loud in the studio. I can't do it on the stage anymore, but in the studio, because you wanted it. I've said this before also, Rockin' to the Night, I can still hear the hunger in that guy. It was oversung, everything. It just had to have it because it was desperation at that point. And I was, singing really way too loud in the studio, then back the mic way out there, and I'm just belting it out because I had to have it. Nothing to fall back on. I had to have this, you know.
So the collaborations, let's talk about Don and Jeff with 38 Special. You guys wrote some incredible, those are 2 of the greatest classic rock standards ever. Caught Up in You and Hold On Loosely.
You know, with any collaboration, when you first meet everybody, it's like a blind date. And we didn't have the luxury of like going out to lunch or anything. They just arrived and here we were, let's write a song, right?
Yeah.
And we're all like deer in the headlights, making small talk. And then Jeff Carlisi notices a picture of the Ides of March. I love the Ides of March. Why do you have that up there? Because that's me. Oh my God, I love vehicles. So that started breaking down the walls. And just about then, Karen comes in with a plate of nachos. And that was the further bonding experience, you know.
Yeah.
And then Don finally starts opening up. So I didn't want to be the first guy to throw out an idea. I wanted this to be a 38 Special song that I collaborate on, that I help.
Special Forces in 82, Caught Up in You. You go from writing a classic rock standard like Hold On Loosely, because it's funny about Hold On Loosely is that it wasn't like a #1 hit. It was number 3 on the rock charts, number 27 on the pop charts. Yeah. But it's lasted longer than probably 70% of the #1 hits out there.
Anthemic song for the band.
Yeah.
You see it all around you. Good loving.
But Caught Up in You, to be able to follow up with a song that's just as iconic. That's pretty rare. But tell me about that. That was a #1 hit for you on the rock charts. And
first of all, the record business is dog eat dog. It's highly competitive. We were constantly trying to follow up the last one and beat the last song that you had for the previous record. Caught Up in You, we had just gotten off of a tour of about 9 months. We used to marathon these tours and not ride on the road because you can't. So after 9 months, we were done. And you have contracts, contractual obligation to have something out 6 months from there, a new record, and you have not one idea of one note. After the divorce from Hold On Loosely, I was dating this woman, and I said, I can't get any work done. I'm just so caught up in you all the time. And it was like a little light bulb went off. Like, that's not a bad title to a good, happy, positive story. We call them little germs of ideas, little noodling guitar figures and things. And sometimes you have 10 seconds of it on a cassette tape, a boom box back in those days, singing into it, blah, da, 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 da,
Don't let this good love slip away.
And then you develop it, it grows, and you edit and cut this part out, and this piece that you were noodling over here that, hey, that could kind of fit there. So Jim Peterick, I have to hats off to him. He was always great collaborator. we never really thought of ourselves as great songwriters, but we were great collaborators.
Yeah.
And that was always a good thing because you could sit around, you hang out, have a good time.
The harmonies were so great too.
I can't live without you.
And your vocal on that, on Caught Up in You, is you really get to hear your falsetto. I mean, you had such a great voice of being able to kind of have that rock and roll voice, but then you could also go into that falsetto. So caught up in you.
But it all came from taking easy courses in school and chorus, you know, things that you could actually, if you have the talent to sing, you can do those things.
Oh yeah.
And it's all about the, you know, the diaphragm and just singing correctly. You know, people can't believe I do an hour and a half and I can still talk after an hour and a half.
No kidding.
Because I'm not blowing a lot of air out of the pipe. It's all down here. It's all energy and vibration. So you have to discipline yourself. You'd never make it. One show, a couple of shows, and you're done. You go to the house.
Well, the guitar solo on that too, we already kind of talked about that, but another just classic Carlisi. I mean, just so great. Well, Caught Up in You is another song that is a master of the pre-chorus again. I mean,
Thank you.
You caught up in you, but then my favorite part of
The
it
bridge.
is the bridge.
The bridge, best
So great.
bridge I ever wrote.
Yeah.
You know, fill your days and your nights, no one to ever ask me twice. Oh no. But that's the best bridge I ever wrote.
Yeah.
You know, I think. And then it comes.
I love that.
And then it comes back, and that was their brilliant stroke in the studio. They brought that bridge back, half of it, after the solo.
And most of the time when you hear a great bridge, for me, I'm like, man, I wish I could hear that one more time in the song.
Yeah.
But they don't. And then you guys did it. So that was
then
great.
again, it's that graph, you know, you're constant, keep the attention.
Yep.
Don't ever lose the listener. Graph will go down. Yeah.
And that music video had a little bit of a story to it.
That is an iconic 80s video.
I know,
They
it
got
so
everything
is.
in there.
I love when the guy's drinking the beer and he finally just tips over.
It was just whatever everyday things.
I
but
know.
It became
The guy's
kinda,
arm wrestling.
kind of like cast in stone there, historical. You know?
And that girl, man, that blonde. I remember as a kid watching that video, like I fell in love with that girl.
Yeah, she's still around. She gives her stories about how she, you know, hung out with us, and it's a little bit embellished story, but.
That's also been used a lot in pop culture with Whip It.
Right, the
a few years back.
movie,
The skating one.
We're number two. We're number two.
He came in second out of 2 teams.
Run, Ronnie, Run, and of course Spring Break.
Spring break. It's the reason kids go to college in the first place.
I still don't know where my underpants are.
It's so great to be, like you said, cruising in your car. You turn on the radio and you hear Hold On Loosely, or you hear Caught Up in You, rocking into the night, and it just makes you feel good. It opens up your heart, the joy.
Hear,
so thank you so much for the
thank
music.
you. It's my honor. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Don.
you for having
I appreciate
me.
your time. Hey, thanks for watching. Leave us a comment about 38 Special and this classic rock standard, Caught Up in You. What do you think about this song? What do you think about, you know, the songwriting credit was given? I wish I had a comparison to show the two songs. The Survivor song that he said sounded like this one. It's just very interesting. Also, what do you think about their big hit, Second Chance? Did you think that sounded like a 38 Special song? I'd love to have a great discussion below about this. Love 38 Special, such a great band. Also, was it 2 choruses or a bridge? Well, let's talk about that below as well. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe below. We would love to have you as part of our community to discuss the greatest songs from the greatest artists. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.